Now let's go over the controls that we use to change the parameters of our synthesizer. Currently, we are at the default startup voice, which is 3 saws, and all of the controls the way you see them set right now. We have vibrato set for the mod wheel. We have our vibrato frequency set roughly around 96. Portamento's off. We have the delay on. We have all these controls set to instantaneous sustain. The cutoff is turned all the way up. The resonance about halfway up. We have our modulations here shut off, and we don't have an auto pitch turned on, and the detune is minimal. Previously, we went over how we could change the waveform by using this window. Currently, we have 3 saws. We can change to noise. We can change to a square wave, and back to 3 saws again. This knob over here can also change all the waveforms for us. Above the detune control are 2 oscillator frequency adjustment knobs. The blue one is the one that we will use most of the time with our waveforms. With 3 saws, we can use it to create chord-like sounds, as well as the 2 saws. It will also work with just about every other wave shape. The orange knob on the right is only used with the hard sync waveforms, as we previously covered in another video. And as you can see, it doesn't do anything with the other waveforms. Over here is a detune knob, which allows us to detune the oscillators against each other when we're using 3 saws or 2 saws. Moving on, let's go to the volume section, and of course we have a basic volume knob here. Here we have a simulation of a voltage controlled amplifier envelope generator, attack, decay, sustain, release, and currently this is set up to instantaneously hit the sustain level. We can turn up to the attack and it'll slowly rise to the sustain level. Or we could turn the decay up and it will start out instantaneously and work down to a lower sustain level. And we have release, which usually we have to use in conjunction with the filter envelope generator release. If we don't have the filter envelope generator turned up on the release, we wouldn't have the effect of the release like we would expect. So turning up this filter envelope generator release helps with the VCA release. Below the volume button is the amp velocity depth knob. This is your velocity control. When set to 0, the synthesizer will not respond to any kind of velocity information that it receives from the keyboard. It will play it as loud as it possibly can for any velocity that you play the keys. As you raise the level, you begin to notice that you have to strike the keys a little bit harder in order to hear the full volume. Here I'm playing fairly softly. Here I play it a little bit harder. Here I'm playing as hard as I can. I will turn this up all the way. Here I play it softly and progressively. I find that somewhere right about 1 o'clock is probably about the best setting. But most of the time I play it without being on at all. Over in the right corner over here we have legato. When legato is on, the envelope generators will not re-trigger between keys as long as you have at least one key held down before you hit the next key. To make this more obvious, let's turn the attack up on the filter envelope generator, like this. And you'll notice that when I go from one key to the next, it doesn't re-trigger. But if I play one at a time, slowly, you hear it re-trigger. Now if I turn it off and play while the key is still being held down, it will re-trigger. Most of the time I play with legato on. Next is the filter section. At default, the low pass filter is activated. One of the most commonly tweaked controls is the cutoff. And over here is the resonance. In between is an envelope generator depth, and below are the envelope generator controls. Let's try a few examples of the filter envelope generator. I'm going to turn the attack up, and the sustain quite a bit down, and the decay quite a bit up. Let's try an octave down. Go down another octave. Add a little bit of release, and again have to adjust both the volume and the filter envelope generator release knobs at the same time. Over to the right bottom corner we have the filter velocity depth. Very similar to the amp velocity depth, we can control how much effect the filter has by how hard we strike the keys. At default it's set to 0, which means it doesn't matter how soft or how hard you hit the keys, it will not affect the depth of the filter. For example, turn it up halfway and hit it softly. Hit it harder. Now let's turn it all the way up, and I will barely press the key down. I will start to slowly increment how hard I hit the key. Over here is the EG depth control, and at default it's set to maximum. And again, here's our sound. At full depth, at half depth, it sounds like this. At 0, it barely runs at all. What EG depth is doing is it's limiting how far the filter is going to open. The filter section also has a key tracker, and the key tracker essentially, when it's turned on, it will open up the filter the higher the notes you play. Lower notes, the filter will start to close more. Higher notes, it will open up further. Your key track knob and your key track exponential knobs are used to dial in how much effect the key tracker has. For demonstration purposes, I find that using the noise waveform will give us a pretty good demonstration of how the key tracker works. Currently the key tracker is off, and if I play several different notes right now, they all sound the same because it's white noise. It does not have a pitch. If I turn the key tracker on, It starts to sound like it has a pitch when it's actually just the filter being opened up further and further as I play higher and higher notes. If I go down, the filter begins to close and we start to hear the sound become more and more dull. For a little bit more fun, let's turn the decay up and the sustain down and go up another octave. Below the key track switch are the key track and key track exponential knobs. Usually somewhere right about where they're set now produces good results. The best I can describe is the key track is more like a depth control, and the key track exponential control helps with the curve of how much influence the depth has on the keys. So if we turn the exponential knob all the way up, they all just kind of sound the same. If we turn it somewhere about 10 o'clock, or turn it down even further, when it's at a lower setting, you have to travel more notes to open the filter further. When you start to turn it up, you have less notes to travel to make the filter open up more. So between the two controls, you can dial in some fairly good sounds. Let's try a bass sound. Now let's hear it without the key tracker on. Back with the key tracker on. So you can see how this could be very useful. We have a high pass switch so that now we have a high pass filter, which makes sounds like this. And we can shut the filter completely off if we wish. And the reason why we would want to be able to shut the filter off is there may be situations where you want to be able to do certain things with more complex waveforms and the filter is using up too much CPU power. And you really don't need the filter for the sound that you are wanting to play. Next, let's go over the modulations. In a previous video, we've already gone over the pulse width modulation depth, and rate knobs as they are used with the saw shaper, pulse, blep square, and wave shaper waveforms. Next to the pulse width modulation controls are the filter LFO controls. It is these three red ones right here. Above is a LFO wave shape selector. Currently it is at sine. We also have triangle, saw up, saw down, square, and random. Let's listen to an example of the filter LFO effect. Now let's listen to the different LFO wave shapes. First we heard sine. Now let's try triangle, which sounds a lot like sine. Saw up. Saw down. And random. Now let's try the square wave shape with a little bit of filter envelope generator effect. Try the saw up. Saw down. Sine wave. Triangle. Another control we have to use is the LFO velocity depth. And like the filter velocity depth and the amp velocity depth, it is sensitive to how hard you strike the key. In this case, it's going to control the rate by how hard you strike the key. It's actually just a multiplier of what your rate is set to. So if you have it set pretty high, it's going to multiply the rate even more so than the highest speed. Let's set it a little bit lower here. Set this up a little bit, about 10 o'clock. And then I will progressively strike the key soft to hard. Increase the velocity depth, and again, progressively from soft to harder. So some interesting effects can be done by using this control in conjunction with how hard you hit the keys. Next to the filter LFO controls are the amp LFO controls. The amp LFO is modulating the volume. The wave shape of the amp LFO actually follows the vibrato wave shape. Right now we have it set to the triangle wave shape. And let's hear what that effect sounds like. Let's change the wave shape to a saw up. Saw down. Square wave. And the sine wave shape, which is practically indistinguishable from the triangle shape. Now the sine shape is a little more distinguishable at a lower speed than the triangle. only slightly.